Welcome back to Return to Heart. In this episode, we explore the difference between knowing the truth about God and knowing Him, and what it costs us when we cut our hearts out of the process. Let's get started.
Phil, I want to talk about what to me has been a game changer. It's been a game changer for me in helping to put together all the moving parts inside me in how I do relationships, not just horizontal relationships, but vertical relationship with God. So I'm gonna go back here to start us today in this discussion, because where we're gonna go is I want to talk about the role of the intellect and the emotions. You know, how we're made physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and we have this brain that thinks rationally, logically, but also has feelings. And we're spending all the time on a lot of this kind of stuff. But I just know I started out in my journey as a Christ follower with a pretty narrow slice, okay, about what it looked like to mature and grow and change and then do relationships, not just with people, but especially with God. And so I really want to hit this. I'm loving this discussion. It's probably going to be more than one podcast, but of all the ones that we've done, every time we do one, Phil, you know, we do this and then we just walk away from it and then it comes out and then I kind of look at it and go, man, I loved what we talked about.
We did good.
Oh my God. Anyway, so this is so much fun with you. But I go back to room 1607, Timothy Dwight College, Yale University, fall of 1980.
Man, that's in your brain, man.
It's in my brain. And I'm sitting with a guy named Harvey Flug. And Harvey, you know, I grew up going to church and I could probably recite a lot of like Trinitarian theology and doctrinal stuff that might have sounded true. But I can just tell you, I did not have a real and personal and intimate relationship with the living God.
Wow.
And I remember sitting down with Harvey, and it's the first time anyone had ever sat down with me to try to help me work out my faith in any way. And he asked me a series of questions. The first question he asked me was, he said, Jeff, he said, if you were to die today, he said, what % chance you think you'd have of going to heaven?
What a great way to ask
Great
that
question. And I said, well, and I'm at Yale right at the time. I think if God grades on a curve, okay?
Of course.
I'm probably a C plus, B minus. You know, I'm not Mother Teresa A plus. I'm not Adolf Hitler flunking. You know, I'm somewhere better than many and also not as good as many, okay? And not as bad as some. And I said, so I think I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. And I described to him, it's like I pictured I had this chalkboard on my back. And it would be today it'd be a whiteboard, but we didn't have whiteboards in 1980. It was a chalkboard, and I said I got this chalkboard on my back, and every time I do something that's sinful or wrong, it was like there's this a line on the board, like a check, and I said my blackboard would just fill up with check marks. Black marks. And then I would ask God to forgive me. And then I imagined this cosmic eraser erasing that chalkboard. And here's what I said to him. I look back now, I'm laughing at myself. And then I said, I just hope that I die shortly after that chalkboard has been erased, that I don't have to die with a marked up chalkboard.
Wow.
Okay. And I was describing to him how I was orienting myself to God with how I tried to put together some things I thought I knew and didn't know. Anyway, so then he asked me another question. He said, well, if you stood before God, and he said, Jeff, why should I let you in? I regurgitated an answer that I kind of knew. I said, well, I'd go to heaven because Jesus died on the cross for me. And then he asked me the third question.
This sounds like a big one.
Oh, it was a big one. He said, Jeff, if you stood before God, and he said, why should I let you in? What would you say? And I went back to the curve question. And I said, well, I think I've tried to be a really good person and live a really good life. And I've tried to even be good with what I thought God wanted me to do. And, you know, I'm the kind of guy you think you'd want your daughter to marry. And, you know, I'm going to tell the truth. And most of the time, you know, whatever. Like I think, and he stopped me and he said, do you realize what you just now said? And I said, he goes, you just contradicted yourself. He said, are you going to heaven because you have managed to live a pretty good life and mix some of Christianity in there? Or are you going to heaven because Jesus Christ died on the cross for you? And I saw the contradiction. And I remember thinking, man, if it's up to me, if I'm really honest, I'm in trouble. And I need a Savior to forgive me. And I need the chalkboard taken away.
Right.
And right there in room 1607 at Timothy Dwight College on the campus of Yale University, October of 1980, I just surrendered my life to Christ. And I said, I cannot keep that chalkboard clean. In fact, I've marked it up, and I don't want to live in the slavery of having to try to keep it clean. I want you to take it away and forgive me, and I trust what you did for me on the cross. And man, something happened to me, Phil, and it wasn't like I got laid down on the floor, but I just know something, a freedom started to grow inside me, okay? It was one of the most significant moments of my life. But then he kept walking me through from that, okay? That really then gets us into what I think is our topic today. He walked me through what would be called some basic follow-up to this young man who just surrendered his life to Christ. And then he drew this picture, or actually he drew it was in the back of a pamphlet that he was working with me on. And there was a picture of a train, okay? And there was an engine, a coal car, and a caboose. And the engine was facts. The coal car was feelings. The coal car was the facts. The coal car was faith, and the caboose was feelings. So it was fact.
I think I see where you're headed.
Okay, so the engine was facts.
Yeah.
The coal car is faith, and the caboose is feelings. And then he said, Jeff, if you were to draw fact like a line, what would that line look like? And I drew a straight line. It doesn't change. Fact doesn't change. And then he said, well, now, if you draw your feelings like a line, draw that. And I drew this squiggly line up and down all over the place. And then he said, do you see this, Jeff? He said, if you put your faith in feelings, your faith is going to wobble just like that wiggly line.
Oh, boy.
Your faith needs to be in the facts, the truth about who God is and what he's done for you. So your faith can be like that steady line. Now, there's a lot of truth in what he said to me right there, okay? Because we don't, what we believe is a truth that's true whether we believe it or not. But what it did in that moment was it literally made my feelings, a God-made part of me, the enemy of my faith. And I spent the next 20 years trying to cut the caboose off from my train and deal with the facts about God and my faith in the facts about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're beautifully describing something, Jeff, that is knowledge of God. Facts.
Yeah.
There are lots of facts, and they're true. And there's not a but in that sentence, but it's and we have an image of God. And we'll call that lived experience. And so I'm just thinking, just even the imagery, it means something that you said. You and I are the same age, so chalkboard makes all kinds of sense to me.
Oh, yeah.
You said the chalkboard was on your back, like a burden. Right? Like there's a reason that your brain said, it's on your back. You weren't carrying like a sandwich board. It's on your back. And these marks. And it was up to you what you did for the marks to be erased. The words are God's going to erase them. Jesus erases them. But actually it was you doing it.
Yeah.
Right? And so your lived experience of God is going to trump your knowledge of him when it comes down to kind of boots on the ground living. I know you're headed there.
No,
keep
going.
This
keep
young
going.
Ivy League student, I'm thinking, man, he's already really smart. He's already really good at taking in knowledge. And so often discipleship has become, the fancy word is scholasticism. Due to scholasticism, spiritual formation, discipleship has become that train, well-intentioned and seems true. It's accurate, but it's not all the truth.
It's not all the truth. I love you just said this. It's part of where these tears come from is there was so much good in what that diagram showed me that if I didn't know the stuff that I went through after that, especially in a place that was hostile to faith, back in the 80s at that campus, what it cost me to be outspoken about my faith. If I didn't know it was true, I was in trouble.
That's right.
So I clung to what was true, and I studied what was true. But what it cost me to have to cut off a big part of how God made me, to do what I thought was spiritual maturity, is so sad to me.
Yeah.
And it didn't set me up to grow, and it didn't set me up to do relationships. And sure, to go back to this, it didn't set me up to start to attach in a trusting relationship with a God who loved me. How could I learn to be a man after God's own heart when half my heart was cut off?
Mm-hmm.
Because really I was just using my rational brain to try to relate to God like a student in a classroom.
Yeah. And it's so, I'm just thinking what you were told by clearly a good man. This man's ministering on the campus of Yale University, a hostile place to Christianity.
It sure was then, I can tell you. Yeah.
Well, and what a godly man that would sit down with the kid from Dayton, Ohio.
Well, it was.
And share the gospel. There's real gospel with him. And then the sadness around, because I was going to ask you, well, Jeff, you said what it cost you, and you started saying what it cost you. Relationship, being able to know what's going on inside your own skin, and all those ramifications that happen from that. And I go back to how we develop spiritually, how we develop as disciples of Christ, and the damage that can do inadvertently can do when we think just the facts. And then I think about, much less the Old Testament too, but in the New Testament, God took on human flesh. And man, if we take a step, not a step back, a step toward Scripture, go through the written knowledge on those pages and pay attention. What is Jesus doing and how is he doing it? When Jesus touched a leper, he had feelings about that. When Jesus came in contact with a prostitute who was, doing her thing, and he's like, I'm not here to do your thing. I'm here to save your life. Mm-hmm. I love you. Mm-hmm. And the woman with the issue of blood, the woman who anointed his feet with perfume, on and on and on it goes. If the train is like this man said, then those are just facts. Yeah. That's just a report that happened, like some kind of summary of an interchange. And like, man, you read the story, you step into the story, that train has to change cars.
Oh, and even even the fullness. I'll say it this way, even the recognition of the possibility of a fullness with a real relationship with a real God was elusive to me. Mm-hmm. Because even in the diagram, here's the part I do appreciate that about the diagram, because our faith better be based on something that's true, because really our faith is only as valuable as the object that the faith is placed in.
Yeah.
Okay. I came up here and I sat in this chair. Okay. I sat in the chair because I actually have a memory that I can sit in this chair and trust that it will hold me up. Mm-hmm. So I actually had faith in this, and I believed it would hold me. Well, this chair is reliable. Okay, mm-hmm. I remember even as a young Christian, especially being hammered by professors and in the classroom, and even other students. I remember saying, if this thing is real that I'm putting my faith in here, it can withstand me kicking the tires. It can withstand me hitting the legs and going, will this hold me? Is this really true? Mm-hmm. Because if it's true for me, it's true universally. And it's not just kind of like, well, this is what I want to believe. Okay, I'd love to do a whole podcast on that, apologetic type stuff. Yeah. Because I just had to just cut my teeth on this stuff up there. But I go back and when I go back to that train diagram, I'm so grateful that I was introduced to the idea that I don't believe this just because I have feelings about it, mm-hmm. or that it's not true when life is hard. All of a sudden, it's not true when I'm grieving and I'm sad and I'm hurt and I'm lonely. All the kind of stuff we deal with in the Emotions Unveiled Bible study. Yeah. Okay, which is part of the passion I brought to that was mm-hmm. around all this. Mm-hmm. But here's what I love. Like I said, so you got this engine, which is fact. Thank God for that. Mm-hmm. And there, by the way, who Jesus is in the resurrection, I don't think it's true just because I believe it is.
Right.
Anyway, and my faith is in that. But it's not stupid faith, okay? Mm-hmm. But then you got this caboose you got to deal with. And here's where I love this. And some of the best thinkers and theologians, if you really get underneath this, are all saying that if you read it. They're just saying it in their day and their language. But there's two truths in that train.
Yes.
There's the truth about God. Mm-hmm. But then back here in that caboose, if I can't walk through the vulnerability of the feelings that are exposed in that caboose, that's the truth about me.
Yes.
Now, what I have feelings about may not be true all the time. I might be making stuff up, imagining some bad thing's going to happen, being terrified about something that's not real, whatever it is. But in that moment, what I'm feeling is what's true in me.
Yes.
And watch this. If I can't apprehend what is true about me, I'm going to miss some things about what is true about God and my need of that objective true truth.
Yes. That's very I hope if people don't remember anything else what we've said, they remember that. I'm going to go back to your chair.
Yeah.
You said it beautifully, Jeff. Like the train says there's a truth about God.
Yeah.
For sure. And then there's a truth about me. Well, let's say when you walked in the room, you have an experience, maybe 20 years ago, that a chair that looks identical to that, you sat down in it with a room full of people and that thing gave way with you and it spilled you on the floor.
Yeah.
Like, when you walked into the room, you would be in a very different place when you saw that chair. Right? That's the truth about you. And then when you sat down in a chair that is reliable, in fact, that chair will hold you up. The truth about you walking in here when that chair gave way with you 20 years was you were afraid and you checked it out. And sure enough, it was faithful to what it said it was and you sat down in it. I mean, even your chair experience, like that's a perfect example.
So even to go further with this, so let's just say hypothetically that all my early, this is where we get into story work, okay? But all my experiences around sitting in chairs where I never knew what was going to happen when I tried to sit down. And sometimes it gave way. Sometimes it bit me. Sometimes it like did more than gave way.
Yeah.
Sometimes it swallowed me up. Sometimes it suffocated me. And every now and then, but every time I came to it, my body was telling me, I don't know, okay? And this is all in our story, okay? And when I say in our story, my ability to trust relationships, especially in my family of origin, mom and dad type relationships.
Yeah.
Okay. So in my case, my story really revolves a lot around my dad and that whole part of the story. So I'm not going to get into all that for time today, but let's just say this. So let's just say with my dad, the overlay of my relationship or lack of relationship with my dad was this: do you really love me? And when are you going to leave me?
Wow.
Because you say that you do, but you keep leaving and you left and then you stayed left. Now, I bring that known experience with a chair to now someone introduces me to the God of the Bible, who in that Godhead, God describes himself as the Holy Spirit, as the Son, but also as what? The Father. And it's a Father that I can trust. It's a Father that he says he knows me. It's a Father that says he wants good for me. It's a Father that says he wants to protect me. It's a Father he says he wants to comfort me through his Spirit. It's a Father that says he loves me, will show me mercy through his Son. It's a Father that says I can come up on his lap. It's a Father that wants to know me. Father wants to be known by me. All that's true. I'm still walking up to that chair that I can't touch or see.
Yeah.
And I'm reading something with the rational part of my mind that says, Romans 8, nothing will separate me from the love of God, neither death, nor life, nor rulers, nor principalities. Like over and over saying, I will never leave you or forsake you. And I'm going, I hear that. And every time I walk up to that chair, I get afraid. And then sometimes I don't even sit in it. But when I do, I don't know why, but like I'm sitting here kind of going, well, I'm waiting for this thing to give out because it will. And I'm not, and I'm like, that's all caboose type stuff, trying to interact with the engine.
That's right.
Which is the fact that God says he won't. God says, I'm never going to. And in fact, there's places in the New Testament where he says, don't miss this. He says, I'm not like your earthly father who did the best he could for what he knew.
Yeah.
But you're going to make a mistake if you think I'm him.
That's right. And I promise you one thing, Jesus speaking, I'm not ever going to cram a bunch of content into the thinking part of your brain and expect you to respond and go, oh, those facts? Okay. We just Jeff, we have to notice how Jesus lived among people.
Yeah.
Not just what he said, how he lived among people. As you said, as we've both said throughout, facts, they're not unimportant. That Jesus said, in fact, in one spot, he even said, you think you're finding righteousness by learning all this stuff, diligently searching the scriptures. I'm telling you, life is found in relationship with me. He's not saying the facts are unimportant. He's saying your cars are reversed.
Yeah.
We've got to live in the image of God, the Imago Dei that we've talked about before, to say, hey, I have an internal experience. This is the truth about me, and that leads me to this very needy place. True, real spiritual formation. I mean, Paul says, I am in anguish, like a woman giving birth to a child. I'm in anguish till you are formed in Christ's likeness. I'm hurting. That is not knowledge language. I'm in anguish for you to be formed like him. Well, what is like him? Well, let's pay attention. He walked around in this skin using relational language in relationship with people. Not because facts are not important, but because this is where we live. What's inside of you is where we live and draws you to this Father you're talking about.
And I think, again, when I think back over, so I've been a Christ follower for 41 years. The first 21 years of that was me trying to be not robotic, just trying to talk myself out of this other big truth about me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't stuff that. I can smother it and stuff it. I couldn't deal with it. And then truthfully, I should say, even in part of my story then, that stuff that gets pushed down, fear, hurt, sad, lonely, shame, guilt, even gladness, like not knowing what to do with all these big feelings that are happening to me, that then over time, I actually became numb to. They're still happening, but then those have to go somewhere.
Yeah.
They have to go somewhere. And eventually they're going to try to find an exit, which then gets into, again, we deal with this a lot in the podcast, but there's ways, it's almost like I get charged. I get charged, and I feel with this charge. And then I'm looking for a ground to release the charge. And so that's why the guy's having a tough week, and he's looking forward to Friday night where he can have that drink.
Yeah.
Or for me, this is crazy. God, I got so much shame around some of this, but when I got into my 40s, and I started dealing with pornography again. Okay, I had about a 20-year period of time where it just almost thought it went away. It just was in the weeds waiting.
Oh yeah.
But there was so much going on in my life, again, with my family, my kids, my wife, the church I'd started, the guy I started the church with, adoptions falling through, this church doubling every year. I had all these stuff going on with my dad again. I had all this stuff happening that I was jamming, like push down. Unbelievable loneliness with the guy I started the church with, fear around not having enough for my wife and kids. I look back now, grief over adoptions falling through, where we were waiting in our home for a child to be brought to us, and then they just don't show because something. Anyway, just crazy stuff. And then my dad's coming apart because he was back into my life. Man, I'm like this charged body looking for a discharge, and I've rediscovered a discharge that my brain had learned is the easiest way for me to get relief. Get relief.
Yeah.
It wasn't sexual relief. It was emotional relief.
That's exactly right.
Because I had a caboose, I didn't have I had lost touch with the language of the caboose to talk to anybody about that, and it seemed to be contradictory to who I was supposed to be as a maturing Christ follower, and at that point, even a spiritual leader, elder, and pastor of a church. And we didn't even do that in church. Like we put people in rows and educate them. It's really don't talk about how scared we are, because that just means I'm not very mature. Well, so go back to this. There's so many bunny trails we could take on this. This stuff is so rich with possibility. I want to get to this because this is going to be so much. We have to do more podcasts on this. Probably the next one, we'll have to pick up on some of the brain science around this about really the way God made us, which fascinates me. The two really pivotal things for me in my walk with God. One is I remember in seminary, one of the best things I did in seminary was I spent a month in the Holy Land. And I remember we were studying. We'd study the area, spend a day in the classroom, then go spend 3 days just like walking into that place and standing in the Valley of Elah, or going to that place in the garden. And it was just crazy. Some of the stuff it physicalized the place. Okay, that I was reading about. So that was huge for me. But then what began huge for me, you've already referred to this already. I'd love you to say more about this. When I started being okay and having a language again for the caboose, for the feeling part of me, which is in my brain, God made, it's not the part of me to be overcome. That's what I want to talk about. Then I started reading the scripture that way. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, this textbook became alive with real people.
Amen.
And I started asking, I'd read a story or a situation that happened with Jesus where somebody, I'd go, man, what was that guy feeling? Mm-hmm. What was happening with him? And then how did Jesus relate to him in that?
Yeah.
And then Jesus was fully God, but was also fully man. How do I see his humanity in that moment?
Yes.
And so then all of a sudden, because I am more comfortable with paying attention to my own humanness in the vulnerability of having this caboose or these feelings, and I'm not having to overcome it, all of a sudden, this book is now becoming more multidimensional. Mm-hmm. And it's speaking to me in ways that I never thought it could. It's not an encyclopedia of Bible truth.
Yeah.
And that changed a lot for me.
You bet. I have a very short career in the sciences, a few semesters. It's really short.
You're brilliant about this stuff, Phil.
Oh, my God. Well, I have chemistry professors that would say, hang on.
Hang on.
But, one thing in chemistry, what limited I have, there with all the lecture in the classes, you always have a lab. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't make lecture unimportant. It's like, let's go live this in the lab.
Yeah.
See what happens here. Because a question in every student's mind, I think I saw a meme the other day. It said, wow, I did it. I arrived at 75 years of age and have yet to use algebra. It's like, right?
Yeah.
But Scripture's not like that. It's like we read in these pages, you're talking about a hermeneutical lens of relationship and what was called the caboose. And the hermeneutical lens is I read that book, that living word, by the way, not content, it's living. When you hear a chemistry lecture, it's not living. It's theoretical. It's based in fact. If you do these things, this product emerges. But you get in the lab, like, this is living. You combine this chemical in this beaker, and you pour it into this flask with this chemical. This happens, and I'm watching it happen. I'm experiencing chemistry.
Yeah.
It's the same picture you're talking about here. So you started reading that Bible there. It wasn't just the lecture information that, I think this is probably a true fact. You go in the lab and put on those awkward goggles, and you mix those things together and go, this is actually what happens when the stuff on that board gets real. That's what you're describing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and I hear these statements that 30 years ago would have gone right over my head. But then you hear a guy like John Piper say this. He'll say that the rational mind, I'm paraphrasing here, but this is pretty close. The rational mind was made to throw the hot coals of truth into the furnace of the heart.
Yes.
In other words, there's a chemical reaction between the caboose and the train or the engine. Like the truth does interact with me. But when those things work together, that's called how we're made. Mm-hmm. And God made us to be in relationship with him and with each other. So being in a relationship with him or even with you, it's going to be thin and one-dimensional if I'm not bringing my whole self to it.
Yes.
Which is what I'd look back and I go, man, that's what I have such a passion. And we use the word anger about this, a wanting for my own life about this, for my children, for my friends, but even in the church to go, we have to learn this. I'm going to read, I don't have it with me. I'll just have to paraphrase it. Because this stuff all starts coming to life to me. I remember actually, I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to read it at the beginning of our next podcast on this. But I'd say this: I want you to tease us into where we're going, because this is not even a Christian book, but a general broad stroke of how we're made. Mm-hmm. Man, I came across this book several years ago by Jonathan Haidt. He's a really good thinker. He's not necessarily a Christian thinker. Yeah. It's funny. Jonathan Haidt was in some debates at Dartmouth with who was it with? One of our foremost current modern day apologetic thinkers, with Jonathan Haidt in a debate at Dartmouth. And the joke of the debate was how much they agreed with each other. How much they agreed with each other. Yeah. Because Jonathan Haidt is dealing with how we're made.
Yeah, anthropology
Of how we're made. And he was in this debate with this Christian apologist, and they were just agreeing with each other on all this stuff, which people were kind of going, well, it's a little bit disappointing. I thought they were going to fight. But they didn't. So I love how Jonathan Haidt does this. I won't read from it. I'll just paraphrase him. But the name of the book is called The Righteous Mind, Why Good People Are Divided by Politics and Religion. Now, politics and religion are two topics we have a lot of feelings about.
Oh, yeah.
So why is it that we're like throwing rocks at each other around that? And here's how he describes that interaction, or how he describes the brain. I want you to talk about it, and then I'll kind of open up to them. We'll stop before we do the next podcast.
Okay.
He says the brain, how we're made, and this is going to relate to the caboose and the engine. Okay, this is really it's another metaphor. He says the brain is like a little man riding on an elephant. Now, the surprise in the story is the little man is the engine of the rational brain, okay? The truth, how we interact with the truth, the rational truth.
Yes.
The elephant, he says, is the limbic brain, which is the place in the brain where we have feelings. Like the elephant is the caboose. And here's what he says. He says, we think we're under the illusion that the little man is telling the elephant where to go.
Yes.
We're under the illusion that I can talk myself out of rationally that because I know this truth, this chair will hold me, that daggone it, I can just go pluck down in it and totally ignore everything in my limbic brain that tells me I can't trust it. Okay? But here's what he says. He says, so this little man's on the elephant. You think the little man's guiding the elephant where to go. He says, the truth is the little man's going for a ride. He said, so I remember reading that, and I picture myself going down I-65 on an elephant. And the brain has something called confirmation bias, where we look for information to confirm what we already want to believe. When I say believe, I mean what we emotionally believe.
That's right.
Okay, I'm going to find things that confirm what my emotions tell me are going to be true. Okay, so he said, if you want to be in a relationship with somebody or talk to them about anything that you care about, that you have feelings about, he said, you're going to have to talk about the elephant.
Yes.
You have to deal with the fact that you're a feeling person sitting across the table or in a room or on a Zoom call or somebody with another living human person that's having feelings about all this. And it's not a rational conversation as much as it is an emotional one.
That's right.
Okay. And he said, you got to learn how to address the elephant. Man, that's so profound to me in this topic, because I go, the little man's important.
Yes.
But my rational brain trying to grasp a rational truth about God, okay, has to be able to interact with a big part of me, and you can talk about this, that truthfully interprets the world faster, quicker, more profoundly, without a sense of time, linear time, all that, which is all happening in the caboose.
That's right. And I'll go to the beginning for our end.
Okay.
If you think of it, it is so silly to imagine that the God of the universe, perfectly in relationship, perfectly relational in himself, breathed that image and likeness into mankind and would put the little man in charge. Like, it's just not right. The image of God is a relational image. The likeness of God is a relational likeness. And the language of those relationship, the language of my relationship with him and the language of my relationship with you and other people on a horizontal level is the language of feelings and the language of what was described as that caboose. It's where I do relational business with those that I love, God and others. And so that's a super great cliffhanger for where we're headed next. Yeah. And this has been so fun, Jeff, just to listen and watch you talk about your story of the train cars.
Listen, when Jesus was interacting with his closest friends, he told them, he said, this is eternal life.
Yeah.
Not just a length of life, but this is a kind of life, a flourishing life, a connected, relational. This is eternal life. He says that you may know me.
Yeah.
He didn't say that you may know about me. He didn't say that you would memorize the Bible about me. All that's important. Okay? But he says that you may know me.
Yes.
And that knowing is more than rational. But it's important that it's true. But anyway, Phil, I mean this. There's a lot of things right now in my life. There are things that I like about what I get to do. some things I really enjoy about what I get to do. I don't like getting older. I don't like, jeez, man, I hate all that. But there is not much more right now I enjoy more than doing this with you.
It's so fun.
God.
Same.
And what you mean to me, but also just I learned so much from you. And I love that we get to do this. And that we just, here's the thing, we just happen to have a camera on.
That's true. That's true to that.
And we got some microphones recording it, which is just kind of like great. Yo, welcome to our coffee table. So anyway, I love it. Let's jump into this next time. I want to pick up. I want you to get really. Next time, we're going to really talk about the amazing way God made us.
It's incredible. Thanks for listening.
Thanks again for joining us on Return to Heart. To access resources mentioned on this program or to find out more about Tin Man Ministries, please go to tinman.org.